Auschwitz is sleeping. Those are my words. For somebody to say it will never happen, I say you're wrong. It can happen.
So just a couple of kilometers from Auschwitz at the moment. To be honest, I have no idea if I'm prepared for this at all. I mean, to know that we're in a place where, you know, over 1 million people were systematically murdered in the most brutal ways. In fact, I think we're here now. This looks like the concentration camp. Auschwitz-Birkenau is perhaps the best-known symbol of the Nazi death machine. However, the Roma victims of Nazi Germany are often forgotten. It's estimated that up to 500,000 Roma perished in the Holocaust, which would have been roughly 50% of the entire European Roma population.
So we are in the library of the Museum Auschwitz. Let me show you a memorial book, The Gypsies at Auschwitz, Birkenau. List of names of Sinti and Roma registered in the camp.
Wow.
21,000
names.
Wow. Of Sinti and Roma registered in the camp. 4 years after the war, as I mentioned, Tadeusz Jachimowski found the book. He wrote names. He hid the book in the ground in Birkenau. He found the book so we can see.
I mean, in a way, it's remarkable that this list survived the war and that we have this documentation. The fact that we know the names of the Roma detainees is due to Polish prisoner Tadeusz Jachimowski, who worked in the offices of the Roma family camp. That list and eyewitness accounts from prisoners provide a grim insight into the Roma Holocaust. And then you have the testimony from a member of the Sonderkommando who said, "Elsewhere the people shouted, 'We want to live. Why do you want to kill us?' The extermination took its usual course. While they were taking their last walk, many were weeping in despair. Desperate cries and screams could be heard from the gas chambers for some time, until the deadly gas had done its work and silenced the last voice." The Roma you see gathered here have come to Birkenau to commemorate one of the darkest days in their people's tortured history. 74 years ago, on August 2nd, 1944, the final 2,900 of the Roma detainees were murdered when Nazi authorities decided to liquidate the so-called family camp.
And then it came that you couldn't work anymore. They took that away. You couldn't have no marriages anymore. And Mama was 19, very pretty. And then she had to sign the papers not to elope or get pregnant. And then when she was supposed to go in for sterilization, they found that she was pregnant. And they wanted to stop the pregnancy. But then they found out that she was pregnant with twins.
Rita and her twin sister Rolanda were of particular interest to the Nazis. Dr. Joseph Mengele was an Auschwitz physician who became infamous for carrying out twisted human experiments, especially on twins.
Rolanda and I were born on the 3rd of March, 1943 in Würzburg University. They took us away from my mom. After 4 days, she could see us. And then when she saw Rolanda, she was 6 weeks old, she had a big bandage around her head. And they shot already to dye the eyes like Mengele did here, from brown to blue. So anyway, Mama found Rolanda dead and she stole me out of the hospital. And the Gestapo, after a while, she had to give us back, or the last 3, grandfather, grandmother, and great-grandmother would have been the Auschwitz, but most of the family was here already.
The Roma community's lack of influence across European society has seen their suffering reduced to a footnote of history.
When I was younger, I knew it affected the Roma, but it was something I always associated more with the Jewish community. Even though I am a Roma myself from a very traditional family, which when you think about that is insane. So it wasn't until I got older and I learned more about it, because it was never mentioned in my school, or I never seen any documentaries of a lot of films that really mention the Roma. So when you do come here and you see it physically and you feel the presence, and it becomes more real. You can more appreciate these people. They were individuals like me, like anybody. You know, they had lives. They had dreams, they had fears, and the worst of their fears came true.
But persecution of the Roma isn't something that's been consigned to the past. Roma populations all across Europe continue to face severe discrimination.
Racism towards Roma people, anti-Gypsyism, it's been said many times before, and I will keep saying it over and over again because it needs to be said. It is the last accepted form of racism. People, even to this day in 2018, don't realize it's wrong to persecute or be prejudiced towards people purely because they are Roma.
Mi sto facendo preparare al Ministero degli Interni un dossier sulla situazione Rom in Italia. E poi i Rom italiani, purtroppo te li devi tenere in Italia.
That was Italy's recently elected interior minister and leader of the far-right Lega party, Matteo Salvini, calling for a census of the Roma population. He has built his career on scapegoating pretty much everybody, from desperate African migrants to residents of Italy's poorer southern regions. Earlier in the year, while campaigning, Salvini paid a visit to a Roma camp and promised to destroy it.
È possibile avere in Italia, e a Torino in questo caso, spazi di illegalità che vanno rasi al suolo.
Salvini's anti-Roma rhetoric has provoked uproar, and Chiara Gribaudo, a deputy from Italy's Democratic Party, claimed that the way is short from a census to a concentration camp. But Salvini's approval ratings have consistently risen since he came to office. To gauge the view on the ground, we traveled to Rome to see the plight of the Roma for ourselves. Our guide Marcello is an activist who works with Roma communities across the country. He took us to Prima Porta, a suburb of Rome, to meet a family that was evicted from a large Roma camp that was recently cleared by authorities. Since that time, they've been living on the street.
Io sono stata a questo campo 15 anni. La mia bambina è nata qua in Italia. È disabile, lo vedete pure voi. E mi hanno buttato fuori dal campo, senza darmi un tetto, senza darmi nessun aiuto, nessuno non mi hanno aiutato. Mi hanno voluto mettere un centro di accoglienza per separarci la famiglia, per separare a me con i miei figli, lontano da mio marito, che questa cosa io non ho accettato, ho detto di no.
The 400 residents of River Village were evicted in July, with the city citing poor hygiene conditions in the camp to justify the eviction. The European Court of Human Rights told Italy to halt the residents' removal, expressing concerns about the absence of any plans to rehome them, but the removal went ahead anyway.
Tutti i negozi che stanno qua, la farmacia che abbiamo vicino, la pasticceria qua e il bar qua, tutti agenti che sono padroni di queste cose ne offrono da mangiare, ne offrono da bere, ne offrono di tutto. Invece la polizia vogliono andare da qua. Noi abbiamo detto da un'altra parte non ci andiamo perché siamo andati 3 chilometri da questa zona, siamo andati a un parco e là sono arrivati, hanno buttato le bombe carta vicino a questi bambini. Noi siamo spaventati, siamo ritornati qua perché questa pazzetta c'hanno le telecamere, c'hanno tutto. La polizia come vedono qualcosa strano qua ci arrivano subito la polizia, così siamo pure noi un po' di sicurezza, no?
Cavallo offered to take us to the river village so we could see where he and his family used to live. But when we arrived, the police wouldn't let us any further than the gate.
Ok, allora ecco, Pizzi.
Ah, il tuo gatto?
Sì, il mio gatto si chiama Tomiz. È rimasto pure lui come sono rimasto pure io, senza casa, senza masa, senza niente. Siamo rimasti barboni sulla strada.
Stiamo sempre nella strada per arrivare alla Auschwitz italiana, Castel Romano.
Castel Romano lies far away from the river village in the outskirts of southern Rome. There, its 1,000 residents live next to a motorway, and it's widely regarded as one of the worst Roma camps in the country.
Ciao, buongiorno, mi chiamo Odis. Salvini, ci hai rovinato! Pezzo di merda che sei!
Io dormo in una tenda perché qua siamo proprio messi male. Qualche volta manca la luce, l'acqua è inquinata, guarda com'è il degrado. Poi avete visto pure voi cosa ha fatto Salvini al campo River, mo sta facendo tutti i campi Rom, ci manda proprio per strada, ci sta lasciando, senza motivo. Poi
l'acqua mi dicevi è sempre inquinata?
Sì, perché dentro l'acqua, dentro alle pozze dell'acqua, hanno trovato una volta topi e anche cani morti. Poi dicono che hanno pulito, però non hanno pulito perché avete visto che bolle escono sui bambini? Perché se ti devi fare la doccia con quest'acqua, ci devi mettere o la mucchina o la varecchina.
Ma la varecchina poi ti mangia la pelle?
È l'unica così.
Jel samo daš adresu da si u kampu, da si iz kampa, automatski neće da te primi. Bez obzira da li čistačica, da li u kuhnji, da li u sobarica, bilo koji posao. Mnogo njih ima koji bi želeli da rade, koji ne bi želeli da se bave krađom, prospom, da njihova djeca bolest ne dobivaju, da nisu ovako izranjavana, izmučena, ispačena. Dosta im je toga.
A Pew Research Center poll in 2016 found that nowhere in Europe are people more hostile to the Roma than in Italy. According to the poll, 82% of Italian respondents had a negative opinion of the Roma.
Non c'è discriminazione, la discriminazione l'hanno creata loro. Se tu non lavori, mi spieghi come fai a campare?
Fanno quello che possono per poter campare. Lei se c'ha fame che cosa fa? E non c'ha lavoro. Si arrangia in un modo o in un altro, se non può legalmente lo fa illegalmente. Questo è umano purtroppo.
Li vogliono stare da soli a parte, non stare insieme agli italiani, integrare vuol dire vivere insieme col condominio, questi non pagano niente religione.
Cioè sono cazzate, nel senso può rubare un rom come posso rubare io, come può rubare lui, quell'altro. Cioè Salvini è un deficiente sostanzialmente, si può dire? Bene.
Salvini ha rotto le balle.
Although Italy is an extreme example, anti-Roma attitudes are widespread across Europe as the continent faces the resurgence of the far right.
If this seed of hatred is allowed to exist, then it can grow. It only needs the right environment. And the right environment is an environment full of fear. And with the current state the world is in, with social and economical crises, it's perfect for governments to be able to perpetuate this hate more in order to get people to blame Roma and other minorities for the problems our countries are facing rather than actually dealing with the problems themselves.
Certain groups that made the Holocaust are permitted to exist again. One land that killed a million people because of a racial issue, and then years later, look what we have now in Europe. Will there be another Holocaust? I always say, Auschwitz is sleeping. Those are my words.